What's up, everyone? In today's episode, I got a chance to sit down and talk to Connor of Dissentience and their newest release, Kaiju. But before we get into it, I would like to say without your support, none of us can be doing what we are doing. So please go follow Kaiju, Rock DNA Magazine, and myself, Drop Click Images, on Instagram and YouTube. Again, without your support, we can't be doing what we are doing. And without any further ado, let's get into it. Connor, we are live. How's it going?
It's going great, man. How are you?
Dude, I'm doing great. It's almost the weekend.
Hey, man, my last day is Thursday, so it's the start of the weekend for me.
Hell yeah. Before we get started, I do want to say congrats on the EP, Kaiju. It is incredible.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's been a long time in the works, we'll say. So I'm very happy to have it out.
Yes. Like, I've listened to it, like I said, a handful of times already. And there's a lot of little things I pick up. Like the first time I was just focused on the energy of every song and the flow. And then all of a sudden I start picking up little bits and pieces with either certain drum fills or guitar licks or something. I'm just like, well, that's sick.
Fuck yeah, man. I mean, we with everything that we do, we always try to focus on that nuance after we get done with like writing the song skeletons, just to make sure that there's always something to chew on for repeat listens. Those are the best albums. The albums that you can listen to a million times and still find something. So we're trying to put out something that we feel is on par with it. I don't know if we hit the mark. That's up to everybody else, but we do our best.
I think you did, at least with me. So yeah, you got one new fan out of this already.
Fuck yeah, man.
So I do want to talk about your band name because you've mentioned you've heard it 10,000 different ways. So how do you say it, and how did you guys come up with this band name?
So yeah, we've heard a lot of crazy things. We've been called the Descendants. Disney Sentence is one of my favorite ones. We say Dissentience. I've heard Dissentience. Either one's cool. We came up with it when we first started the band. Was like, oh man, I think Jimmy and I were 14 and 15 at the time. It was back in high school, and we called ourselves Why We Fight. And there was about 4 or 5 other bands also named Why We Fight. And at a certain point, we got Nick in the band. And things were just changing. We sort of went more from like a metalcore sound to the death thrash sound or the beginnings of that we're still working within today. And we were kind of like, you know what, screw it. They can have that name. We'll find a new one. Easier said than done. I feel like in the internet era, like every band name is taken and you can find out that they're taken. So after going through, I don't know how many different options, I was sitting down in the basement the one time listening to Fortress by Protest the Hero. And they have a song on there called The Dissentience. I was like, that's a fun word. I don't really even know how to pronounce it, but it's a fun word. So I texted to the guys, and they're like, oh, the Protest the Hero song. I'm like, yeah, no, fuck it, let's go with it. It's not taken. But I kind of love it. I think ultimately the meaning, like dissent, which, you can get into like the political dissent and all that, but also it just sort of means to kind of stray from the norm. And that's really our modus operandi. We're always trying to do our own thing and be unique, and if everybody else is sort of going right, then we go left, and sort of the unofficial credo, I guess, is to just try to stay unique and try to find our own path and everything.
Yeah, dude, that I can relate to that a lot. That is awesome that like you guys are trying to stay, unique and true to yourselves, because there is, like you said, there's a lot of band names that have Why We Fight. There's Title Fight. There's there's Fight from Within from Buffalo. Like, I like them, but if you type in fight, you're going to get 10,000 hardcore bands with that name in there. So I'm like, so absolute respect where I type you guys in and it's you guys and then Protest the Hero song.
Seriously, if you go on YouTube, it's like kids from 2010 covering that song in like the early YouTube days, and then like our whole career.
I mean, that's not a bad spot to be in, where it's like, oh yeah, I love this song. And all of a sudden they find you and you're like, yo, this is sick.
You know what? And it's funny too, because we sound really nothing like Protest the Hero, but they are one of like our collective favorite bands. And their fan base, at least from what I've seen, going to shows and chatting with people online and stuff, they kind of love everything. Protest is their not sound wise, but just in like the eclecticness of that band. It's almost like Mr. Bungle or something, where their fans just love everything. And so if they're into like shreddy guitar stuff, they'll probably dig us. So if they're searching out that song and accidentally stumble across us, hopefully we made a new fan,
Dude, that is awesome. And also there was some sick guitar solos and just like licks and riffs in Kaiju where I was just like, that is catchy.
Man, I appreciate it.
My favorite song off of it is Chaos Absolute.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, that was a great one to write, man. That one, I mean, the whole EP is great. I think there's a lot of awesome moments on there, but when we got the mix back for the first time and that riff comes in after the clean section in the bridge, dude, goosebumps. Goosebumps. I hate to pat ourselves on the back, but man, that was like, all right, if we have one moment on this whole thing, that's the fucking moment right there. Love that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first time I heard it was at work, and when that part hit, I was just like stopped. I'm like, whoa, like what is this? I was not expecting it. And then I was like, yo, I'm gonna replay this song again and then continue on with the EP from full.
Mission accomplished.
There you go, man. But so you've been playing guitar for quite some time. But growing up, what bands were you into that pushed you into more of the heavier style music?
Everything. I grew up in a house that was very music forward on all fronts. But my dad specifically he was in a hardcore punk band back in the early 80s, like played with the Circle Jerks, and played with COC when COC was a punk band still. Super fun. So it was an interesting environment because I kind of had like his record collection and shit to pick through as a kid. So where everybody else was listening to whatever, top 40 radio was getting played, I was finding stuff like Killers by Iron Maiden and Black Flag records and all sorts of cool stuff. So yeah, as far as guitar playing goes, weirdly, I mean, a big influence, I can't not admit it, it was Guitar Hero. I'm almost 30, so I grew up in that prime period where like I was in middle school when those first couple Guitar Hero games were hitting. So everything that was on there was awesome. I didn't care. It didn't matter if it was metal because it was all just like cool guitar parts, So you would hear everything from Van Halen to Shadows Fall to fucking Dragon Force and that was also probably the last era of like the Guitar Hero. Not just the video game, but even like buying Guitar World magazine, for instance. I look at it now and it's like they haven't really had new guitar players on there in a long time. But back then you would see guys like Sinister Gates or Alexi Lyle from Bodum or I remember there was an awesome article it was Mayhem Fest 2009 and they had every band that was on the bill did some little feature in that issue that summer. So I was just discovering so much cool stuff. It's tough to pinpoint one thing. I would say that early era of like Trivium, Both My Valentine, All That Remains, Avenged Sevenfold, like all that stuff. That was probably like the first wave of real like my era of guitar-based music. Not just learning like stuff from my dad's records and picking up Metallica and Megadeth and stuff like that, but those were the bands that like I discovered myself going to record stores or CD shops.
Yeah, so I'm 33, so I totally understand where you are coming from.
Yeah.
Where I played like the first two Guitar Heroes like on repeat, nonstop with my friends. Like that is, and it's still fun to this day. Like
Hell yeah.
just hang out and try to throw those on. Unfortunately, my PS3 doesn't work anymore, so game over on that one. But still, that was like the first time I started hearing like you said, there was just everything on there and it was all different genres. And then from there, my first time I got really involved with music was, I think it was like 04, 05. Every single morning I would wake up and I would turn on MTV and the same two music videos would be on back to back, which was Backcountry from Avenged Sevenfold. And then it was Say Anything, Alive with the Glory of Love. That like those two were on repeat and that just kind of just game over.
You know what, man? It's so funny because like playing in like a death metal, thrash metal, whatever. We hate throwing all the subgenre bullshit, but like playing in that style of music, so many people throw shade at that era and like those bands. But man, Jimmy's actually probably going to be so mad that he's not on the call for this because his favorite band is Avenged Sevenfold, or one of his favorite bands is Avenged Sevenfold, and that was like. When we first met, we both played sax in the school band, saxophone. And we went to separate middle schools, but then the same high school. And it was that first year in band camp. I was, wearing whatever band shirts I was wearing. And I was like trying to start a band. I was playing guitar. And I saw this kid on the other side of the sax line that was wearing Avenged Sevenfold shirts all the time. And it was fucking Jimmy. And like that was kind of what started, in a weird way, this friendship, in this band that we've been going together for, Jesus, 13 years now to a certain degree, like in one degree or another. As Dissentience, I think like 2014-ish is when we started going under that moniker. But Jimmy and I were playing for like 3-ish years before that even. But dude, Avenged Sevenfold rips.
Yes, they do.
Fuck
Like
the
all
Halo
their
show.
music, it does rip. I don't like. Yes, there's albums that don't resonate with me. Like I will say, what was it, Hail to the King?
Yeah.
Whatever that album was, I don't care for any of it, but I'm still like, it's still solid. Like there's nothing wrong with it. It just like it did not hit with me compared to the Rev going completely ape shit. And same with Sinister Gates on those the two previous albums, Afterlife and City of Evil.
Oh my God.
What
Yeah.
is this?
Yeah, I saw them on that live in the LBC tour. It was both my Valentine had just put out Scream Aim Fire, so they were still like super super early in their careers.
Great album.
Yeah, Atreyu did The Curse, which was a weird one for them, but dude, kick ass live band. And then Avenged on the White Album tour, and that was like next level. If you watch live in the LBC, that was that show, and that was the second show I ever saw
Yeah.
in seventh grade, sixth, seventh grade. I would go. My dad used to take me to stuff all the time, man, and it was like,
Oh man,
it was the
that's
best.
awesome.
It was the
Yeah,
best.
I think I was a sophomore or junior in high school when that came out. I can't remember exactly when, but that was just one of those albums, again, live from start to finish. I would watch and just like dissect what was happening.
Yeah, and I mean, they were doing some wild stuff. It was legitimately proggy in a lot of ways, but I don't
Yeah,
know. I think that made an impression. Definitely made an impression on us because it showed that you could be proggy, that you could be technical, but also just still write good songs at the end of the day. Like you don't need to be writing some Dream Theater 30-minute, showcase of everyone's skills just to put cool riffs on stuff.
yeah. Yeah, actually, I was so it's kind of weird how you bring that up with the progginess of what some Avenged Sevenfold is. I remember my mom and I went to Cleveland to go see U2. That's her favorite band, and she wanted me to experience it. So I was like, "Let's go! Like, let's have that moment. Let's." It was awesome. On our way back, we were listening to it was Avenged Sevenfold, and then it went to Deep Purple, and all of a sudden, we both looked at each other like, this is like Deep Purple was Avenged Sevenfold before Avenged was doing it. It was like
Yeah.
there's a lot of elements in Deep Purple that Avenged does. And I'm just like, holy crap.
Yeah, I know Sinister, I forget what school he went to, but like he's a trained guitar player and his dad was, oh man, I forget the dude's name, but guitar guy for Jeff Dunham. I don't know if you remember like the comedian with the puppets and all that shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember him.
He would bring that guitar dude out with him. That was Sinister Gates' dad. He was like a huge session musician in I think they're from LA. And so he grew up in a house where like it was just the most eclectic form, mix of music getting pumped at him from a young age. And I mean, you can hear it. It's stuff like, was it Sidewinder that has like the flamenco acoustic guitar in there?
Yep.
One of my favorite things, I don't know if you ever listened to it, but Pinkly Smooth. You ever hear that?
I have not.
It's the Rev and Sinister Gates. It's like
Is that
their
their
side
project that was just beyond weird and
It's like Mr. Bungle if Mr. Bungle were a little bit more metal, but it's fucking just insanity. But I wish they would re-release that with like a decent mix because it sounds so rough, but it is so fun to listen to. Definitely,
I'm
definitely
gonna have
check
to
that
check
out. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely gotta check that out because I do remember hearing that. I couldn't remember the name. Yeah, so I definitely got something to listen to later tonight. Right. Was there like a band growing up where it just blew your mind though, where it's just like I want to pick up a guitar, I want to sound like that, or learn how to play like that? Was there a band or a song?
I know one specific moment. So being in the house with all this different music, my mom was super into like shit like Barry White and Marvin Gaye, and she was like a disco queen type, right? My dad was this metal dude, and everybody likes everything, But on Sundays, they would wake up early, clean the house, and they would always put on music, and it's usually at least started with what my mom wanted to listen to. So, the Marvin Gaye, the Barry White, that should be going in the morning.
Yeah, the more
And
chill stuff.
then, huh?
The more chill stuff.
Yeah, yeah. That would get everybody out of bed. And then my mom went food shopping the one day, and my dad put on Ride the Lightning by Metallica. And I didn't know what it was, but I heard something, and I was like, what is that? And go downstairs, and I talked to him. I'm like, what is that? It's Metallica. It's like, you got to give me the album. Like, I got to listen to this, And a couple days later, he gives it to me, and I'm like, what's the song that had the acoustic intro? I remembered the acoustic intro that stuck out to me. And he's like, Fade to Black. I was like, nah, nah. Like I listened to it. I was like, that's not it. It was Fight Fire with Fire.
Hmm.
It was the first song. And I remember when I listened back to that again, when that first main riff, the dun, 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 when that kicks in, I didn't know what headbanging was, but I started like just bobbing my head because I was like, oh yeah, like this is the shit, man. This is that stuff. It was that first, at least that I can remember, really like visceral reaction to hearing metal music and just cool guitar riffs. And I just knew from that moment on, I was like, I gotta do this. Whatever this is, I'm in it for life. And at that point, I think it was more just as a fan and as a listener. But then, every time that we write a song, every riff that I write, it's like in some shape or form, that's what I'm trying to get out of people. That's what I want to give people is that same reaction. I want them to, tap their foot, move their head, pump their fist, do whatever, because that's what it means to me. It's that visceral thing that you can't really explain, but metal just kind of brings out in people, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah, Fight Fire with Fire probably was the first thing that I can really remember being like, oh, I gotta do that.
I know it's kind of the irony of, heavy music. It's scream, angry, all this stuff. Yet most of us are like the nicest people. And I
Yeah.
always I always find the irony of that because Warp Tour used to come to Darien Lake in Buffalo, and I would go every single year. And there was always parents that would volunteer for it because of kid sports. And after Warp Tour every year, I would always hang out with one or two of them, and they were like, "You guys are the nicest people. Like you respected us. Like it was always that." And then there was other shows like just I'm going to be honest, country shows and that were just fighting 24/7. Like the respect was out the door. People were slurring at them and I was just like, yeah, that's not what this is all about.
Yeah. I mean, most of the crowds that and most of the crowds, most of the bands and other people that we've met have been just some of the nicest, most down to earth people,
Yeah.
They're just fans of the music. I think a lot of times when you get into stuff like country or pop music, people see the shows as just an excuse to go party. And metal shows are to a certain degree, for sure. I have some fun at the shows, but it's in good fun. We're all there. We're all there for the music, for the bands, especially on like a local, smaller scale level. We're all just
Hmm.
supporting each other. And that's kind of what it's all about. You don't see that the sort of family nature, and not family like bring your kids to the show, but like family like
Like
everyone here is
community
family.
on yeah,
Yeah.
it's like the mosh like going into a mosh pit. There's the unwritten rules. If somebody falls, you pick them up. If they get injured, you stop and you
Yep.
get
I
them
was just
help.
gonna
Even
say it.
yeah. Yeah, you
I was
do
just
all
gonna
of
say it,
that.
man.
And same with crowd surfers. When they're coming, you tap people on the shoulders and point at the crowd surfer coming so, you don't get smacked in the head.
Yeah. Nobody wants to see people get hurt at a metal show. It's all, how did Exodus put it? It's just good, violent fun, you know?
That is the best way to describe it. And I also explain it to people where, like, when I go to hardcore shows and I'm shooting metal, hardcore, whatnot, I get into the pit. Like, that is my area. It's not being in front of the stage and that barricade between the stage and the crowd. It is mosh pit. Get me in there. I want that energy. I want to get those shots of looking between the crowd. And I will say the hardest crowd was Weird Al. People did not want to move. They did not care. They were so rude about it. And then I go to the Knocked Loose stage where they're playing, and I literally had a kid in the pit come grab me and just bring me in, and just like there's three of them just kind of around me, protecting me so I can get some shots because that's all that they knew that I was there for. And they're like, "Yo, if you do your job, you make us look cool, and we get to protect you, so it's all good." But I'm
Yeah.
like, that's the sense of community.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of metal fans too, you see a lot more fans being a part of, for lack of a better term, extracurriculars. You know what I mean? A lot of fans are people who do shoot shows, or they're people who are in other bands. Like everybody kind of gets all the aspects of what goes into putting on a show and making it an awesome night for everybody. Probably more so than most of the people that go to a country show that they heard a song on the radio and they're just there to have a good time and party.
Yeah, yeah, because it's unfortunate and fortunate at the same time where metal, hardcore, punk, all that genre of music is it's underground. It's a little bit more prevalent now than it was like say 7 years ago, but it's still very underground scene where unless you are the top tier bands like Slipknot, Korn, I want to say System of a Down, but they don't really tour. They just kind of do like 4 shows a year and walk off. But those top tier bands, people like it's hard to sell out 3,000 for 3,000 cap venues or even 500 for some of the local shows, which but I still go, I support it, and I'm just like, yo, we're all doing our thing.
Oh yeah, and even on that note too, I think it's coming around now. It's getting more popular than ever, and you see a lot of the bands that maybe even 10 years ago would have been like underground to whatever degree are getting some notoriety. Like Cannibal Corpse even just
Yep.
played Madison Square Garden last year. That's
And they've
fucking
been a
nuts.
band for years.
Yeah, and like absolutely deserve it. Those dudes are road dogs and never stop doing it. But it's crazy that I think it was Cannibal, Meshuggah, and Carcass playing. I guess Madison Square Garden has a side stage, whatever, but I'm sure that venue's still fucking huge. That's
Yeah.
nuts. That's nuts. Especially for, I think they're from Buffalo. So for a
Yeah.
New York band that plays fucking death metal and is banned in other countries to be playing the Garden, that's gotta be the coolest feeling in the world,
It's got to.
you know?
It's
And
got
never
to.
compromising. They didn't write a radio hit to do it. They're still playing fucked with a knife and all kinds of crazy shit doing it.
Well, I mean, and one of those other bands I always think of is Guar. They're just they are
Oh yeah.
their own genre, and I was there at
Yeah.
Riot Fest shooting, and when the whole entire people were, this is a disgrace, and all, I'm like, they've done this to everybody. They chop off people's heads. They will do whatever they want. They don't care,
No.
and I'm
No,
all
I
for it.
mean it's 100%, man. 100%. And it's cool to see that, I feel like even they're playing bigger stages now. Like all those
Yeah,
bands. I don't know if it's just the old guard kind of retiring or just phasing out of people's budgets or what, but it's nice to see some of those I don't know, lesser feels like derogatory because they're not lesser bands. They're just as good. But the sort of lower tier bands really coming up, playing those bigger venues and getting that shine.
yeah. And I also do wonder if it's the genre defining like just bands that are just thrash metal. That's not exactly the case anymore. Where I think of like Electric Cowboy, Baby Metal, where they're Sleep Token, they're all gateway bands for metal. But they just have so many different elements that they bring into their style. Where all of a sudden, I have friends that love anime, they love hip hop and rap, but they absolutely love baby metal. And then one day I come into work and they're like, have you heard this band? And it was Knocked Loose. I'm like, what? How do you go from this to
Yeah.
that? And they're like, baby metal. And it was just on shuffle. And all of a sudden they randomly popped up. And then Slaughter to Prevail. They're another one, which is, I don't really know if you can describe them as a gateway band, but they're phenomenal. And they're not just one genre of music. And I think that's becoming more prevalent, including in all genres of music. Even country actually has some heaviness to it.
Oh
Where
yeah.
like I don't
Yeah.
listen to it, but like I know Hardy actually has some very heavier hardcore riffs at times. I'm like, yo, that actually slaps.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, unpopular opinion, whatever, but like I always thought that's what was way cooler and way more accessible about bands like Metallica and Megadeth compared to a lot of those other bands from the same scene is that they brought in so many other influences into their sound, and that's why they really stuck out amongst that crowd. Metallica was putting stuff like Sweet Home Alabama riffs on the first record, and let alone like the Black Album and the Load and Reload era and all that, even just on the early stuff. I mean, Fade to Black was a ballad, and that was their second album. Like they really weren't even, I don't know, they were an established band, but they weren't a massive arena playing band at that point. And they had the balls to do that. And maybe
Yeah.
some people called it selling out. Maybe some people hate that shit, but to me, that's the sign of an awesome band, and that's the sign of trying to create something new. Is really bringing outside influences into the mix. If you're a thrash band and all you listen to and are influenced by is other thrash bands, then you're not breaking any molds. Not that you need to, but it does get stale at a certain. And I think that's what helped those bands really elevate themselves out of that just thrash mold.
Yeah. Yeah, I do agree with that. And it's just like you said, it's also cool when bands will throw those, like, you know, one or two songs on their albums where it's like, hey, this is really different. Like, this is us just trying something new, and you're either going to like it or you hate it. But I love when bands do that. And I feel like that is definitely becoming more and more of a thing.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I'm here for it, man. I love it. Love to hear it.
Oh yeah, dude, same here. I love the weird stuff. Like, one of my favorite bands is Enter Shikari because they somehow mix electrocore, hardcore. There's punk. It's just everything, and it's always them being true to themselves, and also, you know, not. They just played Wembley like 2 years ago or last year. I can't remember when. And for them, that is like our Madison Square Garden. And they've done it without like any major record labels or anything. It's just them being them. And I'm like, I respect that too. Where I'm like, bands just like, yep, screw all that stuff. Let's just do it our own way.
Yeah, I mean that's I'm a huge Mr. Bungle fan, and they're again
Prime
much different
example.
band, but like same shit. Yeah, you can't really define them with any genre, and even album to album, they're so different. And I kind of love that, like, they got signed to Warner Brothers for that first record. Did it with John Zorn, who's like a weird jazz producer, and then I don't know, got a little bit of notoriety from that, and Mike Patton was doing Faith No More. And then for their second album, they went in and did fucking Disco Volant, and it was just like, what? What? It sounds like shittier than a black metal album. The songwriting is even weirder than that first one, and like it's like they intentionally were just like the record label's giving us money. Let's
Let's
just
go do some
throw them
weird
the
shit.
biggest middle finger. Love it.
I respect that too. Where I'm like, yo, you know, record labels giving us money. Let's just go do something completely opposite of what they want.
Yeah. And I don't think they were going for commercial viability with that per se, but I'm a firm believer that nobody knows what the next trend is until you hear it. You can't really predict what's going to happen. Labels can push the stuff all they want or try to push things in a certain direction, whatever, but what hits hits. Stuff like Baby Metal. Like still legitimately surprised that that took off as much as it did in the States. I mean, I know even like old heads that love Baby Metal, and I'm like, power to you. I wouldn't have called it in a million years, truly, but
I
it's
would have been the
awesome.
same. Yeah,
Yeah, but
the first time I saw them, they were like 13 or 14. Like, it was at Rock on, was it called Rock on the Range? It was before
mm,
what it's called now, Sonic Temple, the festival in Ohio.
okay, yeah,
So
yeah,
it was them, and I listened to it because I was waiting for, I think it was like Deftones to come on to the main stage. So I'm watching them through the side stage, like all that, and I'm like, that's it's catchy. I don't know what they're saying. I don't know if it will work, but it's catchy. It's different. And then a couple years ago, I saw them live in New York City. I went there for a weekend. Dude, they just took a hold of that crowd. And at the end of it, people like they just had them feeding out of their hands. They're like, they just took hold. I'm like, I haven't seen that since, Metallica, Slipknot. Sleep Token is another one that has magically done that. But I also think with Sleep Token, there's so much production with the lighting and just the atmospheric that they bring to their live shows where I'm like, there's a whole different thing there. But with Baby Metal, there's just energy. And I'm like, I'm so impressed with them. But I'm like, that's also 15 years of just nonstop grinding at it, and it paid off.
100%, man, 100%.
But I do want to kind of discuss a little bit about Kaiju. I know this is usually how a lot of these go, where we just start talking. I'm like, oh yeah, we kind of need to discuss Kaiju a little bit.
That's how it goes, man.
But what sparked the decision to create a full blown concept EP?
I think we were always just kind of into that. Even going back to Avenged Sevenfold, stuff like A Little Piece of Heaven. I'm a huge King Diamond and Merciful Fate guy. So like concept albums have always, we've had a soft spot in our heart for those. But this time around, probably I guess it was two things. One, when we were writing our last record, Empire Anatomy, the song Clinical Psychosis was probably the first one that we did this on. Langer and I, Sean Langer, our bass player, we watched, I think it was called Wormwood. It was this documentary on like an MK Ultra test subject. And we are like, oh man, like, we got to write a song about this. It's just like such a cool topic. And we didn't write the lyrics right away, but just having it in mind that, the song that we were writing was about MK Ultra and like being in the mind of this person who's like, just got like dosed with acid against their will. And, we were constantly in the writing process being like, all right, like this has to sort of, yeah, it's metal, yeah, it's thrash, but it's got to kind of be a little bit of a roller coaster ride here. It's got to be a little bit weird, a little bit trippy. And I think that song just came together so naturally and so well. And both the music and the lyrics fit together so perfectly that we've started doing that for a few other songs. And coming into this EP, it's kind of a joke actually. Nick and I were at the drive-in seeing Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla the one night, and we were joking around. We're like, "There's these bands that, Gojira and Mastodon and all these bands, and it's like their name is a giant monster, but they don't sound like that anymore. They don't sound like Godzilla stomping through Tokyo. They don't sound like a Mastodon, stomping its way through the Ice Age." So we kind of joked about starting a side project that like every song was just about a different monster. Everyone is pure destruction. It's just, meathead fight riffs the whole time. And we started like screwing around with writing some riffs and whatever. Nothing really came of it. But then when we were talking about doing the new Dissentience, whatever it was going to be, we didn't know if it was going to be a full length, an EP, whatever. Jimmy actually remembered that we had that. And he was like, why don't we go with that Kaiju idea? And it, it evolved, and it went from every song a different monster, 100 miles an hour all the time, to let's try to flesh this out. Let's, watch some Godzilla movies, watch some Ultraman stuff, and try to just like break everything down into the 4 core components. And with that, then we hopped in the jam room. Outside of a couple riffs that were like left over from that, sort of joke side project, we started from a totally blank slate. And we're not the type of people to, like, I don't have a whole stockpile of riffs just ready to go. Like, we got in the room and just from ground zero built these songs pretty much purely with those ideas in mind. With Obsidian, it's sort of the introduction of the monster. Chaos Absolute is like that classic world leaders sitting around the table arguing over what to do scene, combined with like the people on the ground going crazy. The song Kaiju is just, destruction of the city. And then Death Shroud is the monster kind of walking back out into the sea. And anytime we got stuck, anytime that we were unsure of what to do or where to go, it was just like, all right, well, if this was a movie, where would we be at right now? What's the story beat we're trying to hit? And kind of trying to create that like synesthesia between music and lyrics and concept. And it's just super fun. We like writing that way. It doesn't happen all the time, but this is a really cool excuse to make it happen.
Dude, that is awesome. I absolutely love the concept behind it, where it's just with like you guys just getting into a room and just start jamming. There's not much. You have a thought of how this is going to go, but there's no guitar riffs, there's no drum fills, there's nothing. It is just you guys in a room creating this, in a way, a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's weirdly the first time we've ever kind of been able to do that. Even back in high school, when Nick joined the band, he lived across the state, like out towards Pittsburgh. So he was like 4 hours-ish away. And then even when he moved to town, Jimmy and Langer were off at school, and then work had us all in different places. And this was actually the first time in really like our 10 years as a band that we could get in a room and just play. It wasn't record some riffs, trade them back and forth, or Empire. Like a lot of that was kind of me and Nick creating the skeletons and then handing them off to everybody, and then we would all give our input. This was just like everybody in it, everybody in the same room from the get. And it was cool. It's a really interesting creative process. And I mean, we're already kind of like 3 or 4 skeletons into whatever the next thing is going to be, and we're keeping that same train going.
Dude, that's awesome. I can't wait to hear whatever the next, if it's another song or if it's a different EP or maybe a whole different monster in itself. I will definitely be listening to it.
Yeah, I don't know that we're gonna go with the monster again, but I don't know. I don't know what we're doing. Releasing music it's weird today. I feel like way back it was all about the albums, and bands would take this time and really craft like, okay, we're gonna put this song first. No, this song should go first, and the lead single is the 3rd track, and all this stuff. And now it seems like the world is, I don't know if it's just a shortened attention span overall or what, but geared a lot more towards singles and EPs and all this other stuff. So Who knows? I mean, we don't have anything concrete with it right now. You know, we're just writing music to write music. We have a really bad habit of waiting until it's like, you know, like an oh shit moment where now we have to start writing music. So we're just kind of like stockpiling some songs, getting some things together, and you know, we'll see where that takes us.
Yeah. Dude, it is a weird time for music where because everyone kind of does their own thing still. Like Newfound Glory, because I just did a review on their album. They just dropped an album first time in 6 years, and they haven't really released any singles other than the four leading to their album release. But then you got bands like Electric Cowboy and Baby Metal and Slaughter to Prevail who all release singles. And then eventually they'll drop an album, but like seven of those songs, 7 out of the 10 songs are already things that we've heard through singles over the course of 4 or 5 years. So it's just it's very strange, and I'm still trying to understand it too. Where I'm like, who can I ask these questions to? Because I'm very curious if it's, there's so much music to consume now with Spotify, Apple Music, and it's so much easier for bands to just throw their music out there with, especially with YouTube. So is it singles? Is it albums? But I do miss the days where like, an album was very important where you would go to the store, you would buy it. For me, it was the CD at the time. So you go put it in your car and just start driving around listening to it and then go home, listen to it again, and just kind of dissect it. Now it's singles.
Yeah, I mean, it's singles and you know, everything evolves. You know, like the mixtape has kind of turned into the playlist in a certain way
Yeah.
too. And I remember even hearing about, you know, way back, if you take it back to like the early 60s and stuff, like singles were kind of the mode of release then, or the typical mode of release, where bands would just put out singles, 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 and then their album would just kind of be a collection of those singles and the B-sides. And I almost feel like we're getting back to that now. You know, it's one thing that I think as a band in 2026 has its ups and downs is you kind of also have to be a content creator on top of
Yep.
that. And you know, I know for a lot of people it's like, "Oh, we just want to make music, man. I don't want to post on Instagram. I don't want to do all this shit." For other people, they start getting way too into the content creation where now they've kind of gotten themselves stuck with some shtick that they can't really get out of. They're always known as those guys, you know, whatever their gimmick might be. But I think singles are kind of an interesting way to constantly have something to push, but also you're still making music, you know. It's definitely something that we've thought about for sure. Is maybe just doing the next thing is all singles, or just doing a few loose singles for a bit and seeing how that goes. Just because you know you can almost get a month and a half, 2 month release cycle of you know putting something out. You have something new to talk about. So as far as press is concerned and the people are concerned, it's fresh, it's new. And frankly, Spotify, Bandcamp, whatever streaming service, they don't really give a shit if you put out an album or a single. It either gets pushed or it doesn't, all the same. You know, we might be heading back in that direction where it's like, well, let's just put out some singles. Actually, speaking of, you know, we were talking Protest the Hero earlier. One cool thing that they did that kind of blew my mind. They always seem to be really ahead of the curve in a lot of what they do industry wise. The EP Pacific Myth that they put out, I think it was, excuse me, 2015 or 16. They did it, they dropped a track, they put it out on Bandcamp, and then they actually wrote basically a song roughly every month until I think it was 5 or 6 songs. And they would get fan feedback, and it's like, what do you guys want? You want more of that Kazaya sound? Do you want more proggy shit? Do you want, you know, the Jada Kelly feature, the female singer on this, you know? And they were taking all that feedback into consideration and just kept pumping out music, you know. And I think if they did that today, people would have gone absolutely nuts for it. I think they were really ahead of their time with that.
Yeah.
But it was cool to see, and as a fan, it was really interesting to be a part of that and actually see both from a fan perspective and a band perspective, like, oh, these guys are just they're trying things, you know, and that's what was cool about it. You don't have to just stick to this, you know, write a record, put out the record, tour for 2 years, go back home, write the record, put out a record, tour. You see a lot of these bands falling into that cycle, and it works. It's tried and true, but you know, you also see people in other genres of music, you know, like hip hop. There's so many rappers that don't tour. They never play live and they sell more records, they get more plays, they do better numbers than most rock and metal bands.
Yeah, it's crazy. And same with electronic artists, like producers. Like I know Skrillex is always huge, but I meant when I saw him, it was like 2010, 2011 before he was even big. And now he doesn't even have to tour. He can just work and create some songs with some other artists and he's set. Like he'll make more money than you and I combined in one song than what we do in a year.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I'm a big hip hop guy, and there was God, I mean, the amount of like when SoundCloud rap first really like hit the scene. I mean, none of those dudes were playing shows. It was just this song hit, and it's almost the equivalent of like the way certain songs will just hit on TikTok now because it's got a catchy part, and all of a sudden it's doing numbers. And yeah, I mean, some of these bands or artists don't have another one of those in them, and they sort of become a one-hit wonder. But if you can kind of figure out how to beat that system and be a part of that system while staying true to your sound and your style, I think that's, much easier said than done, of course. Otherwise, we'd all be charting number one on the billboards. But that's kind of the code to break right now.
Yeah. But I will also say that you kind of hit the nail on the head with being an artist in general in 2026. Like there is more chances for you to succeed, I think, in 2026 than in 2006 or 1996 or 86 or whatever year that you want to go back to, because you do have all the social media and streaming platforms to get your music out there and to build your own brand. Like you don't exactly need a record label anymore to go into a studio and record. You can get a MacBook or even a whatever laptop that you want with some basic software for recording and create your own album off of that and send it to somebody, pay them $1,000 to do the mastering to make it sound better. But you can do all of this work for a fraction of the price. You can buy a t-shirt
Oh my
printing
God.
machine and create your own shirts and sell them for whatever profits. Like there's so much that bands can do now to be legitimately their own business. And I think back then that was not the case. It was you got to focus on music and you got to focus on sales. And now it's some of the more, I guess, quote unquote, wealthier bands are the ones who are like fully independent. Because I think I was talking to one of, I think it was, I can't remember who it was actually. We're going back like 5, 6 years ago, and they're fully independent. They do small tours, they do all this stuff, but they create their own shirts. They have their own. They bring their own photographer out there so that they do their own content. It's very just DIY, but they figured out how to. Everyone has their own little part, and they do it, and they make money doing it that way versus the record labels and getting kind of money that way. I'm like,
Yeah,
it's
I mean, no
smart.
matter how you look at it, if you want to get past just playing bars on the weekends, it's the music business. And that business side of it is really important. Now, that doesn't mean you need to sign to a label, but there's still business that needs to be taken care of.
Hmm.
And I like what you said about the DIY aspect. I mean, coming from like a very punk background and sort of a punk household, that DIY thing was instilled in me in a very early age. Guys like Ian MacKaye with Discord Records and all that were like a massive inspiration. Reading and listening to interviews with him and like even doing this new record, if I turn the camera around, you would see I have a whole stack of patches right now that I have to cut to get out with these orders for Kaiju because we screen printed the patches. We had them screen printed. They're all on big sheets. It's 12 or 16 patches a sheet or something. So I'm cutting those all individually. To try to save ourselves a few bucks and our fans in turn a few bucks
Hmm.
with the CDs, I draw. I'm super into comics and all that. So, and I have some Photoshop background. So I figured out, I can get 3 lyric sheets on a big sheet of 11 by 17 paper. I'll have those printed up myself. Instead of having the people who printed our CDs do it, I'll just stuff them all. I'll have it printed. I'll trim up all the lyric sheets, fold them all up, and put them all in myself. It's a little extra work on our end, but I think it makes the product way cooler and way more personal. And I think people, especially in rock and metal, and punk and hardcore as well, obviously, really appreciate that little extra touch of the DIY aspect in everything. And to me, it doesn't matter how big we get. I always want to be involved, whether it's involved in the you know laying out the CD. I don't know. I don't have one nearby, but like, our CDs look like old school CDs from the 90s where they have like the copyright ring around the side. It has like the name of the songs down one side, the name of the album, like
Oh, that's pretty cool.
down to every little detail. We plan that out, and it's all very intentional. You know, we don't, especially this time around. I dealt with a lot of that myself, like personally doing it. Even the screen separations for our T-shirts, I didn't screen print them myself. That's wild work, but I did all the separations to have them look. I like the look of like old 90s and 80s metal shirts where they like tried to print the album art, but it almost looked like they didn't quite have enough colors, so it's a little bit blown out and oversaturated. But like trying to recreate that look with our painted album art was super fun, and the shirts turned out awesome. Like it looks straight out of that era, but with our cover, you know, it's our thing. So having all that control in house, keeping that, and even just being able to chat with whether it's interviewers, whether it's fans about this stuff, because they care about this shit too, you
Yeah.
know, just as much as we do. We're all nerds about this stuff, and it's fun to just like geek out about it to that degree. Because I know so many bands that they don't want anything to do with that. Like I said, they just want to make their music, and that's where it ends for them. They don't want to go online. They don't really, outside of a quick thank you for coming out, they don't like talking to fans. If you come to a merch table at our shows and you're like, oh man, you know, it's who did that artwork, or you want to talk movies. There was a kid the last show we played. I mentioned that we were doing a kaiju themed concept EP. It was right before the EP came out. And he just shouts like, what's your favorite monster? And I was just like, man, am I really about to just have a conversation with this kid on like in the middle of this show right now?
I mean, at that
But
point,
I
I'd be like,
love it.
yeah, why not? Let's do it.
Yeah. I threw an answer out, but yeah. And then after the show, we chatted for a while, man. But it was super fun, and doing it the way that we do it. That's where you make those connections, and that's the best part, man. Those are the highlights of every show that we play are those moments. You know, I love getting on stage. I love throwing down, but talking to fans and like making those interpersonal connections with everybody. That's the shit that sticks around forever.
Yeah, and I will agree with that. There's I've been going to concerts since I was like 14, 15 years old, and I'm 33 now. So there's been hundreds, if not thousands, of shows that I've been to over the course of those years. And there's the few that stick out, which I mean, there's always the first show, which was Warped Tour, all time low. That is always like that will always be embedded in my brain because I had no clue what the hell was happening. There was a mosh pit, crowd surfers. I had no clue. Nobody warned me about it. And by the end of it, though, I was like, I just want to be a part of this. I don't understand any of it, but this is it. But this is also one they came out with like Coffee House soundtrack. So it is like their first albums where it was very pop punk style. But then besides that, there's always a couple of other ones where Pew Pew Pew, which is a Canadian skate punk band, I saw them play and I talked to the drummer for like a half hour after the show. And I remember that because of the conversations that we had. We were talking about, travel and music and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, this is more important to me than the show half the time. Well, more than half the time.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean those moments, and even just like people that you meet in the crowd. You know, I remember like literally the last show before lockdown that I went to. It was Voivod, Revocation, and Psychroptic in New York. They had a Philly show, but I couldn't make it that night, so I went into Brooklyn by myself for this show because like Voivod is a massive, massive band for me, and Revocation is a huge influence on us. And Psychroptic. Psychroptic, if you've never seen them or never heard of them, that by far the tightest band I've ever seen live. It was absolutely insane, and they're super technical, so I don't know how the fuck they pulled it off. Like I said, I was there by myself, and not only in PA, I might know some people. If I go to a metal show in like the Philly area, I'm bound to run into somebody I know. Brooklyn is a whole different scene, man. Like I don't know anybody there.
Yeah, same
So,
here.
I was grabbing a beer, walked around. I was just trying to find my spot in the crowd and whatever, and make friends between sets. And next thing you know, buying a couple people drinks. We're having fun. We're singing whatever Iron Maiden songs are coming over the PA between sets, and just having a great time. And those are the moments. I couldn't tell you what Psychroptic set list was, but I remember having those fun moments in between sets with just randos, with random people. And like that's the shit. That's the shit that whether it's a show I'm playing, a show I'm going to, whatever, that I just love about the metal scene. Like, going back to it, there's just that massive sense of community that you get.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny how you bring that up. The last show before lockdown and everything else, mine was While She Sleeps. They're from Europe. I don't know exactly where, but they played at Rec Room, which is like a 450, 500 cap room. And I was looking at their merch, and their main guitarist, and like he's the main vocalist, but he's like he does most of the cleans. He just came up to me and started talking to me, and I'm just looking at him like, aren't you like, why are you talking like, what is going on? And I just like, I remember it was like a 50-second conversation or so. It was a very awkward conversation for him, so I'm just like, what? And but after the show, all the members are up at their merch table, and they spent hours into everyone, because I waited in line towards the end, and eventually I went up to him and I'm like, dude, I apologize for that. I just was not expecting you to just randomly tap me on the shoulder and start having a conversation with me, when I'm like, I was just not expecting. So, but I remember that still to I can't remember any of their set list. I don't remember anything like that. I just remember those moments. And I'm like, that is what music, that especially with metal and hardcore and punk and all of this stuff, that's what it's all about. It's just, making those connections. And for them, like, that 3-minute conversation is probably just a 3-minute conversation to them. But to fans, it's like, that was a connection. That's like, yo, I will always come see you guys whenever you're around. Like, I respect it.
Yeah, I mean, those are the kind of things that'll turn a random, person in the audience who's never heard of you before into a lifelong fan.
Yep. Yeah,
Or
it did for me.
friends even.
Yep.
100%.
Now, you said that you answered that kid in the crowd for the monster. What was the answer?
Oh man, I love Gigan. He always gets chumped out in every Godzilla movie that he's in. Like, I don't know that he's ever had like a redeeming moment, really. He's always like some, the goon of the kaiju. But man, it's the best design. He's got like his eyes are like a Cyclops visor. I think he's like part like cyborg-ish. He's got just giant spikes for hands, and he's got a like circular saw in his chest. He's insane. It's like the most insane design. But yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of all that Toho stuff, but especially for me, the 80s Godzilla is kind of where it's at, because it's the perfect mix of like dude in a suit, really heavy practical effects, and it's a little bit goofy still, but they're way darker than like the 60s Godzilla movies. So,
Yeah, they were kind of
perfect mix of like
humorous.
serious and fun.
Yeah. Yeah, the
Yeah.
60 Godzillas, I rewatched one of them, and I think I lasted like 10 minutes. I was in tears laughing. I'm like, how is this supposed to be scary? And I don't know if if it was ever supposed to be scary. It was just, it's so
Well,
bad. It's a classic.
yeah. I think the first one, I wouldn't say that it was meant to be scary. It kind of came on the back of stuff like King Kong, where it wasn't scary as much as it was social commentary. But then it really hit. And they were just, that shit was like the MCU of 60s Japan, man. They were just churning those things out every year. And it got to the point where, like, there's one of them where Godzilla, like, talks like he has a speech bubble come out of his head and shit. They got so goofy. And also, like, at a certain point, Godzilla, they had to stop making him destroy Tokyo because people liked it. So then Godzilla kind of became, like, the
The
hero.
hero.
Inadvertently, like the anti-hero. It got so goofy, and they're fun. I love all of it. I will watch every single one of them and love every second of it. But they are goofy as hell by the end of the 60s. Like I said, the 80s stuff is super cool, and if you haven't seen it, Godzilla -1
Dude, I was
was
about to bring that
amazing.
up.
It was amazing.
Which is crazy. The budget was like $20 million compared to, ours $200 million. And no offense to ours,
It
it
looks
was
so
not
good.
that good. -1 is 1,000 times better, and it
Oh my
felt
god, yeah.
so like a world worth like that you lived in, and you felt the feelings and the emotions from the characters. And Godzilla, just he was a beast.
Yeah, man, the effects in that were so good, and it's funny. So we wrote this before that came out, and we had the whole thing done, and then Jimmy, Matt Manafro, who runs Peach Pie Sound, that recorded us, and myself, we all went to go see -1 in the theater, just kind of as like homework, and getting together before we recorded, because we're really good friends with Matt. I was so stoked because we were all excited coming out of that, but Godzilla hasn't been like a big thing in a long, at least not like in the zeitgeist, topping
Yeah.
charts of anything in a long, long time. And when Minus One started winning awards and like now it feels like it's sort of back in the zeitgeist, I think they just had I don't know if they just announced it or if they just put out another poster, but Minus Zero is coming out, I think in November now. So I'm very stoked for that. But we were like, holy shit, we could not have picked a better topic to write a concept EP about than this because it's sort of like just from a cultural standpoint, it's a talking point again. Godzilla's huge. The word kaiju is not just some like corner of the nerd world
Yeah.
anymore. It's like when Cthulhu became big, and now all of a sudden everybody knows all the Lovecraft monsters and shit.
Now, do you have like a favorite Godzilla movie, or or even just a horror movie in general that you kind of just like, yo, I will always turn this on and watch it?
Yeah. As far as Godzilla goes, man, like I said, any of that 80s, the Heisei era stuff, Violante, Mechagodzilla 2, any of those are awesome. You can put those on any night of the week, and I'm gonna grab popcorn and sit down and watch it. But as far as just straight horror movies, and I'll say this, movies in general, two of my favorite movies ever, Alien and The Thing.
Dude,
And
I was about to bring it up, the
maybe
thing.
yep, dude, maybe a bit like cliche because they're absolute classics, but they're classics for a reason.
Yeah.
Both of those movies are so fucking good and just so perfect.
Yep.
I can't find a single flaw in either.
Yep, especially the thing, like Alien One was awesome. Aliens plural, so two, I guess, is like it takes it to that next level, kind of like Evil Dead and Evil Dead Two, where it's kind of the same thing but just a whole different level. But the thing, John Carpenter's thing, the practical effects, it still looks phenomenal to this
Oh
day.
my
Like
God.
you watching, you're just like, that looks so legit, and it is what 30 plus years old now, if
Yeah,
not
and,
more.
and it's like disgusting looking too. Actually going to Evil Dead, I might be a weirdo in this, but I love the first Evil Dead. I love all the Evil Dead stuff, but the first one really has like I holds a special place in my heart. And there's one scene in that, and maybe it's like because it's so low budget that like the stuff they're using is kind of for real. It's where is it Ash's sister stabs his girl in the ankle with the pencil, and it's like they used like a pig leg or something and actually stabbed it with a pencil because that makes me just like cringe every time I see it, man. It's like it's so corny in a certain way, but it's so visceral. Like if they used, CG blood or if they tried to like generate that, it wouldn't hit the same. But
Yeah.
that for as low budget as it is, just makes me like, wince every time. Love Evil Dead.
Oh, yeah.
And talk about fucking DIY, man. They were doing that on no budget.
Yeah, yeah. I like you said, I don't think there was a budget for the original Evil Dead. It's kind of like Clerks One, where the budget was what, a couple $100, and just again, it's just people making movies and making art, and it just explodes
Yeah.
for Evil Dead,
You know,
literally.
and yeah, yeah. And there's an honesty to it, I think that when people try to make things just because they think it's what's going to hit or it's the sort of popular thing to do, people can see through that. But when you do something that you love strictly because you love to do it, people recognize that. I think that passion shows through no matter what it is, whether it's movies, art, music, whatever. That is something that holds true across the board. I think I lost you there for a second.
Yeah, I was just mentioning Armies of Darkness, the third installment, where they
Yeah.
kind of have a budget for it, and it's just ridiculous. But like, it is the humor in it is, I still laugh at it.
It's
It's
still great.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's like all the Three Stooges stuff that they like Sam Raimi and Campbell loved. They were putting it in that, and even the effects, it's still all practical effect. Like it's still they're doing it how they want to do it, just with more money now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great stuff.
Is there any movie series that you wish that would come back?
Oh, man, huh? Now, are we talking strictly horror here?
Oh no, just in general at this point, where like I can think of one, but I don't think it
So
will.
not technically a series, but something that I wish just like took off more was Dredd, the Judge Dredd movie
Yes.
from, what was that, like 2012?
Yep. That was actually one of the ones I was thinking of.
Dude, such a good fucking movie.
Yep.
One of my favorite comics. And I don't know, it just like that movie was so good. It was so well done. Another low budget winner, in my opinion. And I know that they were going to do I think it was a TV show with it, but I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened, period, with that movie. I feel like it got like no distribution, no love when it came out, but I've never met a single person that didn't like it if they saw it.
Yeah, I remember watching it. It was where was I? I was home. So like I either rented it or streamed it or whatever. But I remember like when it was done, I was like, that was badass. Like that was legit what Dread was supposed to like how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why they didn't build off of it because it like you said, it is a small budget film and they've had to recoup their money unless it didn't make, like 300% profits.
Well, and with like the proliferation of all the comic book movies since then, because that was sort of toward the beginning of, the MCU really picking up steam and all
Yep.
that. You would think that they would see that as just like, dollar signs in the eyes. Like all right, we can keep milking this. Let's make three more sequels. Greenlight that shit. Go, go, go. But nah, nothing.
Yep.
Nothing.
No, but they'll
What's
green
yours?
light, well, Dread was definitely for me, but like I wish that they would give the reins back to the original people for Star Wars. As more like I absolutely like I despise Disney Star Wars. Except for was it Rogue One? That was a phenomenal standalone film that really had nothing to do with Star Wars other than the last couple minutes of it. But you actually
Yeah.
saw like Darth Vader being Darth Vader. Like that was straight up horror
Oh
and
yeah.
how that they predicted him or just how he was for those 2 minutes, just murdering them all. I'm like, yo, this is sick. Give me that. Like green like
Yeah.
that. Just angry Darth Vader.
Well, and it's
But
like they alluded to that in the whole like original trilogy with like how, just vicious Vader was and
yeah,
all that. And you'd see little glimpses of it in a PG sense, but you never really got the full Monty until
yeah,
that scene in Rogue One.
yeah,
I'm with you on the Star Wars. I'm not a big like extended universe kind of person. Like I think the beauty of those original Star Wars movies, prequel trilogy included, with all its quirks, is that it was kind of coming from George Lucas and the Lucasfilm crew. It was a singular vision that this guy had and a singular story that he wanted to tell, and the world just kind of built itself around that. I don't need all the side quest
yeah.
miniseries, and it's cooler not knowing what happened to Boba Fett after the Sarlacc pit in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Let the mind do its thing.
But I will say the one actual mini series that was really good by Star Wars and Disney was the Clone Wars series that they did, the animated series.
Yeah.
I do recommend like I think there's somebody made like a you can find online like the top 20 episodes that really kind of defines what happens between episode 2 and 3 for the original trilogy, I guess, or well, the prequel trilogy.
Yeah,
I
because
don't
it's
know.
between like
Yeah.
Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was always as a kid, that was always my problem where I'm like, I don't understand what happened to make, Anakin go so dark from the second one to the third one. But in the Clone Wars episodes, I started watching it and I was like, this makes sense. And then especially the ending of it where it actually does get very dark. I was like, yo, respect. That was actually good.
Yeah.
But
Fuck yeah.
everything else from Disney has been terrible with Star Wars.
Yeah, I gave episode 7 a chance when that first came out, and I was like,
Nah,
"Yes."
nah. It's just, and I tried to give it all because I worked at a movie theater growing up, so I got a chance to watch them all for free, and I still could not recommend it even for free.
Yeah, it be what it be. Some of that stuff, it's what's the Dark Knight quote? You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And
Disney's done that, and so same with Star Wars.
yeah, yeah.
Now, do you play any video games, or is it kind of just strictly music and movies?
Yeah, I'm not a video games type person, man. All the rest of the guys in the band are at least somewhat into games. For me, I was never into it. I'm, like I said, a big comics guy.
Yeah,
Love me some comics.
yeah,
And just all sorts of crazy shit. But yeah, movies, music, comics, even TV. I'm not a big like TV person. I kind of
You're
love I kind of love a movie that's just like give me a nice like 2-ish hour chunk, get it all in there, and then be done with it. Sequels, sure, but give
Yeah,
me
give
just
me the
a nice one
beginning,
and
the
done.
middle, the end. Give me an hour and a half to 2 hours. Anything longer than that, I really start questioning if I got the time for it. But yeah, I'm very similar to you, where I'm like, I don't have time to watch like One Piece. I love the Netflix little thing that they did, but afterwards, there's like 1,000 plus episodes. My brain's just like, no,
Yeah.
I don't have time to do that.
Well, dude, like even on the like manga side of things, like the comics, there's so much of that that's like 40 volumes or like I think I don't even know how many volumes One Piece is. And that is just an immediate turn off to me. I'm like, nope, I'll stick with like Akira is like 6 books or 5 books. That's plenty for me. I'll
Yeah,
stick with that, or just give me a nice little one shot. I'm cool with that. Honestly, I was just talking about this last night, actually. I'm a huge Star Trek fan, kind of because of that. Like at least the original series, Next Gen, like all the 90s stuff. Deep Space Nine rules, super underrated if you've never seen it. But all of those are like one and done episodes. So you can kind of like get in, get out. Deep Space Nine, they start doing like season long arcs, but they're still pretty much one and done episodes, which is nice. So you can kind of just throw any of those on, and I don't know if you finish an episode, you get a whole story, and it's nice. I don't have to. There's none of the. There's still character building over time, but I don't know. I don't need to watch a whole season of something to be like, get a satisfying story out of it.
yeah, I'm very similar. Like, don't get me wrong, when I was younger, I used to be able to binge, like, sit there and watch TV or play video games for 8 hours. Now I'm just like, nope, give me an hour. Give me like that hour and a half, 2 hours. I want something that has a start, a middle, and an end. Where if it is like a season, like you mentioned, where even though it's the end of that episode, it isn't like pushing you to watch the next episode. I
Yeah,
don't need that. I got too much on my plate as it is. I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, but let me watch
Well,
a movie.
and bringing it full circle here, like with Kaiju, I mean, I think that was kind of something that we really kept in mind when we were writing this. Like, even though it was a concept, we needed all the songs to work individually as well. We didn't want this, because there's some of these concept records where it's like one song flows into the next and into the next and into the next. And like, dude, I love Catch 33 by Meshuggah. Really do. You can't just skip to the middle of that record. You have to listen front to back. Otherwise,
Yep.
just put on another album. And as cool as that is sometimes, and as fun as of an experience as it is to just drop the needle and go with something like that, we really wanted to have something that worked every which way. It works as a front to back concept EP. Every song works as an individual song, and even the concept itself, it's like, I think there's it wasn't 100% intentional from the get, but I think there's like a large amount of metaphor there too that, maybe like Godzilla movies aren't your thing, but you can get down with like the metaphor of this giant monster coming in and tearing up somebody's life and just upending your whole world. I think that's something everyone can relate to. So, trying to make things work as universally as a death metal record can, was a massive piece of the undertaking.
And I mean, I do think you guys nail it, and I also do think that you nailed it with the timing of the album, where some of those concept albums are like 70, 80 minutes long. Like they're just as long as possible that they can be. Which some of them cool, awesome, but there's times where I'm like I said with stuff where I'm like I want to have the start, the middle, the end, and respect my time. And like when I was done listening to it the first time, I hit restart and re-listen to it because it is that perfect sweet spot of like I think it's 22, 23 minutes somewhere in there. Might be
Something
a little
like
bit,
that.
yeah. But I'm like 4 songs. That is the perfect time, I think.
Yeah, and even just like going with an EP instead of an album. It was a short conversation for sure, but it's a conversation we had when we were like coming up with this whole topic because we were like, do we want to do a 10 song, like really fucking widen the scope of this thing? And we were like, no,
No,
no, no. We want to get in, get out, even like take it back to the Godzilla movies, like they're fucking popcorn movies, man. I mean,
Hmm.
the best of them have that metaphor built in. There is that commentary that you can get out of it, whether, minus one, the original Godzilla, all that. But they're popcorn movies, you know? I wouldn't want to watch the way that there's a 4 hour cut of all the Lord of the Rings movies. If there was a 4 hour cut of every 60s Godzilla movie, I wouldn't sit through those. It doesn't work like that, you know? They work as kind of a nice sort of tight package as far as that's concerned. So for us, like trying to stick within those boundaries and kind of play with all that, it's like sure, there's all these sort of B movie aspects and the popcorn movie aspects, but we also take the music end of it very seriously and we take the concept seriously. We're not trying to joke about, dudes in suits or the gore effects or stomping on cardboard buildings and all that shit. Like, no, like let's take this kind of goofball topic and really take it seriously, but still have fun with it.
Yeah. Which I felt definitely throughout the album where I'm like, you guys, like, the lyrics are there. Some of it's serious, some of it's goofy, but like the instrumentation, like I can tell that you guys are like you definitely thought about every aspect of this EP, and it's great actually. I'm not gonna lie. Like there's parts where I'm like I can tell that you guys love doing this, and it is a lot of like you guys had a lot of fun while making this EP.
Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, this is the first time we all really like were able to sit in a room and write together. And it's just a blast, man, especially because we've all been playing together since high school. So it's not just like a band chemistry, because I know a lot of guys, when you're in a band for that long, you kind of need your personal time, especially a lot of bands that tour. It's like they get off the road, they go their separate ways, they do their thing, and then just sort of reconvene for the tour, reconvene for the writing. With us, it's like we're all still really good friends. We go out on weekends, we have a good time. When we get in the jam room together, I mean, every once in a while we butt heads. It just happens. But for the most part, it's just it's like it transports us mentally like right back to being in high school and just let's, go over to my parents' house after school and like watch the Black Dahlia Murder DVD and just fucking jam afterwards. And, it's just fun, and that's the vibe that we always try to bring to the table. I think we've matured as songwriters, but when it comes, as soon as we go in the jam room, we have not matured as people.
That is a great way to describe that. It's actually like a lot of respect to you guys for being in a band together for so long, and on top of it, still being friends because uh, being in a band, even for, it's been what, 15 years or so with you guys? 10, 15 years, somewhere in there?
Something like that. Too long.
But you guys know exactly like how to push each other's buttons, either for the good or for the bad. And you've already, yeah, and you've made, there's times where you guys just are at each other's throats and you want to kill each other, but at the end of the day, it's you guys are still friends, and that comes first, I believe, with you guys,
Oh yeah.
and it
Yeah.
shows. And it shows like this isn't always about making money or any of that. It's like, yo, we love doing this. We love hanging out with each other. It gives us an excuse to hang out with each other
Dude, if,
and makes
if we
cool.
wanted to make money, we would play fucking Journey covers or something. Like we played death metal. There wasn't money in this to begin with.
No,
We all just do this because we enjoy making music together. And even like I said before, like all of our influences are so vast and I don't know. I don't speaking for myself here, not for anybody else in the band, but like I don't know that I could be in a band with anybody else. Just because like we have this unique chemistry that anything that gets brought to the table, we're open to. We don't sit there and be like, this isn't death metal enough. This isn't thrash enough. Like, fuck that noise, man. The
you're
last song on this EP is practically like a sludge metal song for most of it, for most of the running length. And I don't think that, for lack of a better phrase, I don't think other death metal bands would have the balls to do something like that because it's so out of the wheelhouse. It's still metal. We're not pushing the boundaries of genre like a Bungle or Dance Gavin Dance or something like that. But at the same time, like we don't really care about just sticking within the boundaries that, even the whole death thrash thing. I mean, it's the easiest way to label us, but we didn't set out to be that. We're just a metal band. We want to play metal. That's all we want to do. Whatever that encompasses that day that we're writing, that's what it is, you know?
No, I get that. And I know we've been talking for quite some time, but I do want to end with a couple quick questions for, musicians who are coming up in this genre of music and, any advice that you got for them. First off, is there any advice that you would give to a musician just starting out who wants to be in bands?
Oh man, run. Don't do it. No, seriously, have fun with it, and don't take yourself too seriously. I think is really what it comes down to. We take the music very seriously, but if you ever see us live, it's a party, man. We're there to have fun. But with that being said, too, we hold ourselves, and this is something that I see the opposite of all too often. So this is a don't do for those coming up. Don't put yourself out there until you're ready. We hold ourselves, and kind of since day one always held ourselves to a pretty high standard. We would watch live DVDs of Black Dahlia Murder and Avenged Sevenfold and Gojira and all these bands. And we're like, man, if we can't even put out a tenth of that, we don't belong on any stage. So we worked our ass off not only to make sure that the music was there, or at least as close to there as we could get it at every stage of the band, but also the live show. Making sure that you're moving around on stage, making sure that you're interacting, because like we were talking about before, those interactions are what people remember way more than, oh, I flubbed that note in this solo, or I missed this tom hit in the fill. Nobody cares. Frankly, nobody knows your music. For most bands coming up, the people in the crowd don't know who you are, and you're going to make a better first impression by just going out and having a good time and being confident on that stage than you will by getting every note perfect. So, yeah, I would say have fun, but also have confidence when you get out there. Make sure that you're ready to get out there and prep past just the music.
That is some really good advice, actually. Because a lot of people are, they always say have fun, which it is. If you're not having fun, don't do it. But the confidence aspect is a lot, I think people overlook. And I do think there is you need to have a certain confidence level. Like you can't go up on stage and just be scared of being yourself on stage.
And it's
I,
easier said than done.
yes.
Like everybody that plays in a band has gone through the period of stage fright. I mean, there's some people. I was just listening to Henry Rollins talked about playing with Ozzy, and when he opened for Ozzy in like the '90s. So this is Ozzy, at arenas, and the Ozman came up to him before and was just like, "Are there people out there? Do people show up?" And it's like, "You fucking yeah, dude! Like,
Yeah,
of
they're here
course,
for you.
yeah." So even people at that level still get nerves. They still get stage fright. You got to realize that you got to own that shit. When you get up there, you have to own that stage because people notice not nerves, but nervousness. If you're going to be coy on stage and you're in a metal band, it's kind of weird, you know? You have to be at least a little bit commanding, and even if you have no idea what you're doing, act like you know what you're doing, you know?
Yeah, the key expression, fake it till you make it. Like
100%.
legitimately.
100%.
Yep. And I learned that as a business owner is I never say no, which has brought me to some interesting situations. But at the same time, I'm just like, yo, can you do this? Yeah. Do I know how to? No, but I'm going to figure it out before the event, so I know how to do it.
100%. 100%. Like I said, half of the shit that I ended up doing for Kaiju with like, the CD layout and screen separate, I had no idea what I was doing going into
Yep.
all this, but it was like, let me figure it out and let me make it good. So,
So what's next for you guys? Is there any shows planned out or any like maybe some vinyl drops, anything kind of in the works?
oh man, you know what? I would love to do vinyl drops. It's expensive, man. I'm
Yes,
a
it is.
big record collector. I love me some vinyl, but god damn, it is expensive as hell to press a record. And especially, I don't like to put things out or charge prices that I wouldn't want to pay myself. And for a 4-song EP at the limited run that we would have to do, you're charging people an arm and a leg.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate because I would love to have our releases on vinyl. And listen, if there's people out there that want it, let us know because if there's interest, and those pre-orders will do well, I would absolutely invest in doing that. But yeah, as far as shows and all that go, we're working on some things right now. We had an album release show lined up, but it's the fucking monster that crashes through everyone's life, man. The roof collapsed at the place that we were going to play like the week before, so we
You
had
guys
to
could have
move
used it
it.
as marketing.
Dude, you know what? It's funny because we were getting ready to announce it and then it happened and I was like, if it were announced already, absolutely. I would have remade the flyer that day with just Godzilla coming through the ceiling. But so we're working on rescheduling that and then hopefully come springtime, that's when we're going to start picking up shows. We do have one coming up in I think it's April 11th, opening for Exporter in New Jersey, which is going to be awesome. We haven't played Jersey in a while. This EP took a bit longer than anticipated to come out. We were sitting on it for a bit. There was some behind the scenes action going on before we kind of pulled the trigger and just said we're just going to do this ourselves. So things have been a little slow the last sort of year, and I'm very excited to start picking things up again. You know, it's been a while since we've had like consistent shows, and I'm really itching to get back to the stage because the handful that we have played, we've been doing this EP. Like I said, these songs have been done for a while, so they've been in our live set. You know, if people out there have caught us, you know, these songs have been going over absolutely amazing live, just in a very limited capacity. So I'm really, really, really excited to bring them to a lot more people.
That's awesome. Where can people find you? Is it Instagram? Is it Facebook? Is it TikTok? All of it?
You know, technically all of it. I would say Instagram is the best. That's the platform that we're the most active on. Everything kind of gets posted as an offshoot from that. Check us out on YouTube. I post there as well. Actually, I don't know when this is coming out, but tomorrow, February 27th, we're going to have the music video for Kaiju coming out, the song Kaiju. So that'll be super fun. Check that out on our YouTube channel. I believe it's just at Dissentience. And yeah, you know, follow us. We're posting all the time. Any show updates, we post there. Posting practice stuff all the time. You can actually, the song has already changed a bit, so it's not too much of a sneak peek, but there are some new unreleased riffs if you dig a little bit back into the channel. There's some fun stuff from practices earlier, well, I guess later last year. But yeah, so there'll be little snippets here and there coming for that. And any updates, any vinyl updates, any tour updates, any of that nonsense, it'll all be there first.
Awesome. Connor, this has been awesome. Dude, thank you
Absolutely,
again.
man. Great chat. Absolutely, man.
Awesome.
It's been a great chat. I'm glad you had me on.
Dude, and everyone who's listening still, please go follow Descendants. No, I did it. God damn it.
I really want to make like what is it? The Leonard Skinner. It's pronounced Leonard Skinner.
Yeah.
We gotta do a joke shirt with the phonetic dissension.
Yes, Dissentience. But at the same, you can do two joke shirts. Is the other one with all the other ways that people have said it, which is X's on them.
We'll just make that the back print. It'll just all be crossed out going down the back.
There you go, dude. There's a marketing
Awesome.
idea.
Awesome.
All right, everyone, go follow them. That was a fun episode with Connor. And if you haven't listened to Kaiju, I highly recommend that you do. And again, please take a couple minutes to go follow and subscribe Dissentience, Rock DNA Magazine, and myself, Drop Click Images. Without your support, we can't continue to do what we love. And until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and I'll see you in the pit.